One of the biggest missed opportunities in Dexter was the fact that Rita died before she got to confront Dexter for who he truly was. But what if she didn't? How would Rita surviving change the world of Dexter? Could he maintain the illusion of the perfect family man while continuing his secret life? Or would everything come crashing down around him? Well, in this timeline, that's exactly what happens. We start in Rita's home. She's in the bathroom, washing her face. The sound of running water fills the room. Behind her, Arthur Mitchell, the Trinity Killer, stands naked. He grabs her, whispering an apology. "This isn't your fault," he mutters. "It's your husband's." He's about to restart his ritual, but then Dexter strikes. A headlock, a struggle, and then snap. Arthur collapses, dead. Rita, shaking, clings to Dexter, overwhelmed with terror and relief. And then it clicks. She remembers Arthur's words. "This is your husband's fault." A chill runs down her spine. She steps back, her mind racing. Every little suspicion, every odd moment, every inexplicable disappearance, it all falls into place. And in that instant, Rita knows. Dexter tries to calm her. He tries to reassure her, but there's no hiding from this. She knows. Rita is confused, puzzled. No, she demands the truth. She knows Dexter has always been hiding something. And now, standing before her with blood on his hands, he can't hide anymore. Not after murdering a man in front of her. She gives him one final chance to come clean. All of it. Backed into a corner, Dexter lays it all out. The code, the dark passenger, the bodies. Rita is horrified. She realizes the man she's been living with is a true monster. Dexter tries to explain, he only kills killers. But there's no way to make that sound good to a mother whose instincts are screaming at her to run. She's not just a wife, she's a mother. And now she's looking at the father of her children, realizing he's a killer. Harrison's cries echo in the background. Rita picks him up, stepping away as if Dexter carries a disease. "Get out," she sobs. "Just go." If you like where this story is going, hit that like button, subscribe, and comment below. Do you think Rita would have kept Dexter secret, or would she have called the police? Let's talk about it. Dexter didn't panic. He warned her, if she went to the police, she would be investigated too. What if they believed she was an unfit mother? What if they took the kids away? The words were meant to slow her down, to make her rethink her decision, but they only fueled her disgust. Rita stormed out of the house, jumping into her car, driving as far away from him as she could. Dexter stood in the bathroom, staring at Arthur's lifeless body. Even in death, the man seemed to smile. Harry's ghost appeared, stating what Dexter already knew. Rita finding out meant there was no going back. Dexter clenched his fists. He should run, but he couldn't. Not yet. He wasn't ready to let go of his life, of his family, not without a fight. First, he had to clean up the mess. He grabbed what he could from the house, wiping away the evidence, erasing any trace that Arthur Mitchell had ever been there. He wrapped the body in a thick blanket, hauling it to the trunk of his car. Then, in the kill room he had prepared, he did what he did best. The blade sliced through flesh, the wet sounds filling the empty space as Arthur was reduced to nothing more than pieces in black bags. A monster turned into scraps. That night, Dexter took his boat to the Everglades. One by one, he dropped the bags into the water, watching them sink into the depths. For the first time in years, he didn't keep a blood slide. There was no need. The Trinity Killer was just gator food now. Dexter found a rare calmness in his apartment, though it wasn't really his anymore. It was Deborah's, and he was just the roommate. He hadn't gone back to his own place since everything with Rita fell apart. Deborah, on the other hand, thought everything was fine. Since the kids were at Disneyland with Rita, having fun with Mickey Mouse, she didn't know what was really going on with him. To her, everything seemed normal. Dexter was just staying with her for a while. But for Dexter, lying in the quiet, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was changing, and he didn't know what would happen next. Days slipped by, marked only by the shifting light through the window. Morning arrives, the golden glow of the sun stretching across Dexter's apartment. He sleeps, undisturbed, until bang, bang, bang. His eyes snap open. A surge of panic grips him. Is this it? Did Rita finally expose him? Harry appears, his ever-present ghost, the voice of his dark passenger. He had warned Dexter to run, told him that staying would only lead to this moment. But now, there was no running. Dexter exhales slowly, forcing himself to steady. Whatever awaits him on the other side of that door, he'll face it. He rises, crosses the room, and pulls open the door. Masuka stands there, awkward and sheepish. Relief floods through Dexter, quickly followed by irritation. Masuka shifts on his feet, clearing his throat, looking as if he's carrying some unshakable guilt. He shouldn't have waited to tell Dexter about Rita. Dexter doesn't need to hear it. He already knows. Masuka told him about the kiss. It's done. But Masuka still feels bad. He keeps talking, explaining that he should have said something sooner, that he didn't want to keep it from him, that he wasn't sure if it was his place. But the guilt had been eating at him, and now here he was, standing in Dexter's doorway at the crack of dawn, trying to make it right. Dexter exhales, brushing it off. You could have told me at work. But Masuka insists. What's an apology without coffee and donuts? Dexter barely manages a smirk. From the hallway, Deborah appears, groggy and irritated to find Masuka standing at their apartment at this hour. She complains, but still grabs a donut. Then Dexter's phone buzzes. A message from Rita. We need to talk. Dexter grabs his keys and leaves Masuka and Deborah behind. Driving home, Dexter's heart raced as he neared the house. He saw the moving truck parked along the curb. Rita's grandparents were packing up. His stomach dropped, feeling the weight of what was happening. Pulling into the driveway, his eyes moved to the sidewalk where Asta and Cody stood with their suitcases behind them. Cody spotted him and ran towards him, his little legs carrying him quickly, full of hope and fear, not wanting to face what was coming. The boy ran towards him, his small legs carrying him with all the urgency and hope of a child who didn't want to face the reality that was taking shape. As soon as he reached Dexter, he flung himself against his legs, clinging to him. Dexter's throat tightened as he looked down at Cody, feeling the weight of his words. The boy's simple question was filled with an innocence that made it all the more painful. Was it their fault? Had they done something wrong to cause all of this? Dexter rested a hand on Cody's shoulder, offering the only comfort he could, though it felt like too little for the moment. But he knew the truth. Nothing could stop what was happening. He looked past Cody, his eyes landing on Rita, who was giving instructions to her grandparents, guiding them through the process of packing up. Her posture was stiff, deliberate, almost as if she was a stranger to him. There was no warmth in her movements. When her eyes met his, there was no anger, no accusation, just an understanding, silent acknowledgement of the inevitable. As Rita turned and gestured for the children to get in the car, Dexter remained frozen in place. He watched as she exchanged a few words with her grandparents before walking towards him. Their eyes met again, and for a moment, the world around them seemed to disappear. There was only the silence between them, heavy with everything that had been left unsaid, everything that had led to this moment. They sat on the porch steps, neither speaking. The silence between them was heavy. Dexter's heart raced as the reality of what was happening sank in. He'd known this moment was coming, but nothing would prepare him for how hard it would hit. Finally, Rita spoke. Her voice was calm, but the pain was clear in every word. She told him she was leaving, that she was taking the kids and heading to Orlando. Dexter's heart seemed to stop for a moment as the words hit him like a physical blow. He had known this was coming, but hearing it out loud made it all too real. Rita handed him a stack of papers, but Dexter didn't need to look at them. He already knew what they were. Divorce papers. The final step in a journey that had been unraveling for far too long. He could feel the weight of the papers in his hands, the heaviness of everything that they represented. Rita spoke again, her voice quieter now, almost a whisper, as she assured him she wouldn't expose him. But she was done. She wanted out. Full custody of Harrison. No questions. Dexter's chest tightened, and a sharp, cold pain settled deep within him. He had hoped, maybe foolishly, that there could still be some way to fix things. But it was clear now. There was no fixing it. He hesitated, unsure of what to say, unsure if there was anything he could say that would change her mind. He wanted to beg, to plead for another chance, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he watched as she shook her head. Her face set in a way that told him there was no changing her mind. She had made her decision. "You left me no choice," she had said. And in that moment, something clicked in Dexter's mind. Nathan Martin. He remembered the predator, the man who had been watching Asta, waiting for the right moment to strike, the man Dexter had killed to protect his family, the man who would have destroyed everything if Dexter hadn't acted. Rita's face turned pale as she listened, her breath catching in her throat. But even then, she didn't flinch. She didn't back down. Her tears started to fall, but her resolve remained firm. She had made up her mind. "I have to go," she said. Her voice breaking, she placed a pen on top of the divorce papers. Her hands trembled, but she didn't pull away. She pushed the papers towards him, silently demanding he make his choice. Dexter stared at the papers, his fingers tightening around them. For a moment, everything felt out of his control. His entire life had been about survival, about doing whatever it took to keep going, to protect himself and those he loved. But now, in this moment, he was faced with a decision that was about more than survival. It was about something else, something he hadn't prepared for. With a shaky breath, Dexter reached for the pen. His hands trembled as he signed the papers, the finality of it hitting him all at once. His grip tightened around the pen, and for the first time in his life, he did something completely selfless. He signed. As Rita left, Deborah arrived. She caught sight of Rita driving away, then turned to Dexter, demanding to know what had happened, but Dexter couldn't explain. He just pulled her into a hug. For the first time, Deborah felt something she had never felt from her brother before: vulnerability. A rare human moment. She told him she had his back. Whatever happened next, she was there. But it wasn't over. The next night, Dexter stood on his boat, staring out at the endless ocean. The calm of the water did little to ease the storm in his mind. The weight of losing his family pressed down on him, the life he had carefully built now falling apart. He needed the solitude, the space to process what had happened, alone, as he now was. But then, his phone rang. The hospital. It was about Rita. She'd been in an accident. Dexter's heart pounded. He drove faster than he'd ever driven before, pulling into the hospital parking lot. Running through the hallways, he found the waiting room, his breath shallow. A doctor explained the situation. Rita's car had been struck by a drunk driver. She was alive, but in critical condition. The children, their small faces filled with a mixture of relief and lingering fear, stood beside their grandparents, who themselves were trying to remain strong for them. As soon as they caught sight of Dexter, they rushed towards him without hesitation, their little arms wrapped tightly around him. Dexter, feeling the weight of their distress, crouched down to their level, gently placing his hands on their backs in an attempt to calm them down. His voice carried the strain of the moment as he reassured them the only way he could. "Everything is going to be okay," he murmured, the words soft yet firm. Dexter sat beside her hospital bed, watching her unconscious form. He had lost her once, and now he was on the verge of losing her again. But this time, it wasn't because of his secret. It was because the world was cruel, because fate had a twisted sense of irony. Days passed. He stayed by her side, barely moving, barely sleeping. He held her hand, whispering apologies she would never hear. And then, one morning, her fingers twitched, her breath steadied, her eyes fluttered open. She saw him, and she didn't scream, didn't recoil. She just stared. Dexter didn't know what to say. He had been prepared for her to wake up and reject him all over again. Instead, she just looked tired, beaten down by everything. She finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. She wasn't sure what to do anymore. She just knew that no matter how much she hated what Dexter was, part of her couldn't let go of what they had been. Neither of them knew what would happen next. For now, Rita was alive, and Dexter was standing in the mess he had created, seeing a chance to fix it. That's it, guys. What do you think? Did the story go the way you expected? What would you have changed? And most importantly, do you want a part 2? Let me know in the comments. Drop a like and subscribe for more. Appreciate you all, and have a great day.